I was sitting in my car in the parking lot of my office at 2:15 in the afternoon watching the live feed from the Nanny cam I'd installed in our nursery 3 days earlier. And my hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped my phone when I saw my wife Emma walk into frame wearing the black lingerie I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. The lingerie she told me she'd lost when we moved into the new house 6 months ago. And she wasn't alone because my brother Tyler was right behind her with his hands already on her waist. And I watched them kiss in our baby's nursery with the mobile I'd assembled. Hanging above them and the walls I'd painted soft yellow, spinning around me as I sat there in my car trying to remember how to breathe. I'd installed the camera because our daughter Lily had been sick and Emma said she was having trouble napping. And I wanted to check in on her during the day from work because I'm probably one of those overprotective first-time dads who checks every little thing. And the camera was supposed to give me peace of mind. Supposed to let me see my baby girl sleeping peacefully while I sat through boring meetings about quarterly projections. But instead, I was watching my wife of 4 years and my brother who I'd grown up sharing a bedroom with destroy everything I thought I knew about my life in crystal clear 1080p HD. The thing is, I didn't even suspect anything, not really. Not until I installed that camera. Emma had been acting completely normal, maybe even happier than usual, more affectionate, wanting to have date nights and being playful and sweet. And I remember thinking that we'd finally adjusted to parenthood after those brutal first 6 months of no sleep and constant crying and feeling like roommates instead of lovers. She'd been working from home 3 days a week since her maternity leave ended. And Tyler had been stopping by more often to help with house projects because he's a contractor and we'd been slowly renovating the place. And I thought it was great that my brother was so involved with his niece, that he'd come over and paint, trim or fix the deck while Emma worked upstairs. And I'd come home to find them having coffee in the kitchen laughing about something and I'd feel grateful that my family was so close. I'd feel grateful. And I'd been so fucking stupid. The camera had arrived on a Tuesday and I'd set it up that night after Emma went to bed, mounting it on the bookshelf between the stuffed elephant my mom had given us and the baby monitor we never used anymore because Lily slept through the night now. I'd downloaded the app and configured the motion detection and the two-way audio, testing it by whispering, "Good night, princess," and watching Lily shift in her crib on the screen. And I'd felt like such a good dad, so prepared and responsible and modern. Using technology to keep my baby safe. Wednesday, I checked the camera maybe 30 times from work, watching Lily sleep through her morning nap, watching Emma come in to get her up and change her diaper, watching her read Goodnight Moon in the rocking chair I bought at an estate sale and refinished myself. Everything normal, everything perfect, everything exactly what I wanted to see. Thursday morning I'd been in a meeting that ran long and hadn't checked the camera until after lunch. And when I opened the app, one saw that motion had been detected at 10:47 a.m. in the nursery, which seemed weird because that wasn't Lily's nap time and Emma usually kept her downstairs in the morning. I'd scrubbed back through the footage and seen Emma walk into the nursery carrying Lily, putting her in the crib even though she wasn't sleeping, giving her some toys, and then walking out and closing the door. And I remember thinking that was strange, but not concerning. Maybe she needed to take a work call or use the bathroom or something. But then at 11:02 I saw Tyler walk into frame and look around the nursery like he was checking for something. And he'd walked right up to the crib and looked down at Lily and smiled, and then he'd walked out. And 5 minutes later Emma had come back to get the baby. I'd watched that sequence 3 times trying to understand what I was seeing. Why Tyler was in my house on a Thursday morning when he should have been at a job site. Why Emma hadn't mentioned he was coming over. Why he'd gone into the nursery alone to look at Lily. And I'd told myself there was probably a reasonable explanation. Maybe he'd stopped by to drop off some materials for the deck project. Maybe Emma had asked him to check if we needed more paint for the trim. Maybe I was being paranoid for no reason, but I couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't focus on my work, kept checking the camera feed every few minutes hoping to see something that would explain it. And that's when I started really watching, really paying attention. And I started noticing things I'd been blind to before, like how Tyler's truck was parked down the street instead of in our driveway when I got home that evening. And when I asked Emma if he'd stopped by, she said no. Said she'd been working all day and Lily had been fussy. And she kissed me and asked about my day and started making dinner like everything was fine. Like she hadn't just lied directly to my face, like how she'd angled her laptop on the kitchen table in a way that made it hard for me to see the screen when I walked past. And when I asked what she was working on, she closed it quickly and said just boring spreadsheets for her marketing job. Nothing interesting, and she'd smiled, but something in her eyes looked wrong. Looked caught, like how my brother had been texting me more often lately. Asking about random things. What time do you usually get home from work? What's your schedule like this week? Is Emma's car the Camry or the Accord again? I always forget. Questions I'd answered without thinking twice because he's my brother and why would I question him? But now those texts felt different, felt calculated, felt like he was gathering intelligence. Friday morning I'd called in sick to work and told Emma I was going to the office anyway because I had a big presentation. And I'd driven halfway there and then turned around and parked 3 blocks away from my house and opened the Nanny Cam app. And I'd sat there watching and waiting with my chest tight and my mouth dry. And at 9:34 a.m. I watched my brother's truck pull up in front of my house. I watched him walk to the front door and knock. Watched Emma let him in wearing yoga pants and a tank top. Watched them talk in the foyer for a minute where I couldn't see them. And then watched Emma carry Lily upstairs to the nursery and put her in the crib with toys just like she'd done the day before. And I knew what was about to happen, but I couldn't look away, couldn't close the app, couldn't do anything but watch. They didn't come into the nursery that day. Must have gone to our bedroom or the guest room. And I sat there watching my baby play with her stuffed animals, completely unaware that her mother and uncle were destroying her family somewhere else in the house. And I must have sat there for 2 hours, maybe 3, just frozen and staring at the screen. And when Emma finally came back to get Lily, I watched her pick up our daughter and kiss her forehead and smile. And she looked so normal, so loving, so much like the woman I'd married. That's when I realized I needed proof. Needed more than just Tyler's truck outside and suspicious timing. Needed something undeniable. And that's when I decided to wait, to watch. To let them think they were getting away with it while I figured out what to do. The weekend was the hardest part because I had to act normal. Had to smile at Emma and play with Lily and pretend I didn't know that everything in my life was a lie. And Tyler came over on Saturday to work on the deck and I had to stand there handing him tools and making small talk while imagining what I'd seen on that camera. What I hadn't seen but knew was happening. And he looked me right in the eye and called me brother and asked if I wanted to grab a beer next week and watch the game, and I said sure. Yeah, that sounds great. And I wanted to hit him so badly my hands were shaking, but instead I just smiled and nodded and handed him the drill. Monday morning I told Emma I had meetings all day and wouldn't be checking my phone much. And I drove to work and immediately opened the camera app and waited. And at 10:15 Tyler's truck appeared. And at 10:22 Emma put Lily in the nursery. And at 10:34 I watched them walk into frame together. That's when I saw the lingerie. When I saw them kiss. When I saw my brother's hands on my wife's body in the room where our daughter was sleeping. And I watched for maybe 30 seconds before I had to close the app because I thought I might throw up. And I sat there in my car in the parking lot trying to figure out what the fuck I was supposed to do now. I couldn't go to the house. Couldn't confront them, not yet. Because I was so angry I didn't trust myself. And I needed to think, needed to plan. Needed to figure out how to handle this in a way that wouldn't destroy everything including me. I saved the footage, backed it up to 3 different places. Watched it again that night after Emma went to sleep and I stood in the doorway of Lily's room watching her breathe and wondering how I was going to tell her someday that her mom and uncle had betrayed us. Wondering if she'd remember this house. This nursery, this moment before everything fell apart. The next 2 weeks were surveillance and documentation. Watching them through the camera every time I said I'd be at work or in meetings. Saving every video, noting every date and time. Building a case like I was a detective investigating my own life. And the whole time I acted normal around Emma and Tyler. Smiled and laughed and pretended everything was fine while inside I was planning exactly how this was going to end. I decided it had to be at dinner. At the family dinner my mom hosted every other Sunday at her house, with everyone there, with nowhere for them to run or hide or make excuses in private. And I needed them to know that I knew, needed them to feel exposed the way they'd exposed me. And I wanted everyone to see what they'd done, so I waited until the Sunday after I'd collected 3 weeks of evidence. Until I had videos and timestamps and proof that couldn't be denied. And I drove to my mom's house with Emma and Lily in the car, and Emma was talking about something from work. And I was nodding and thinking about how in 2 hours her whole world was going to implode. Tyler was already there when we arrived, sitting on the porch with my dad drinking a beer. And when he saw us pull up, he waved and smiled and came down to help Emma with the diaper bag. And he picked up Lily and tossed her in the air, and she giggled. And he looked so much like the brother I'd grown up with. The brother who'd taught me to ride a bike and defended me from bullies and been my best man at my wedding. That for a second I almost couldn't believe what I was about to do. We ate dinner at the big table in my mom's dining room. The same table where we'd had every Thanksgiving and Christmas and birthday for 20 years. And my mom had made pot roast and Emma's favorite mashed potatoes, and Tyler kept making jokes, and my dad was telling stories about work. And it was so fucking normal, so warm and family-like, that I could feel the anger building in my chest like pressure behind my ribs. I waited until dessert was served, until everyone had pie and coffee and was relaxed and happy. And then I stood up and said I had something I needed to share with everyone. And Emma looked at me confused, and Tyler looked at me curious, and my mom smiled like maybe I was about to announce we were pregnant again. I pulled out my phone and opened the video I'd saved, the clearest one from that first Monday, the one that showed everything. And I set it on the table facing toward Emma and Tyler and pressed play. And for a few seconds no one understood what they were watching, but I saw the exact moment when Emma recognized the nursery. When she saw herself walk into frame, when she realized what was coming, she reached for the phone, but I grabbed it first and held it up so everyone could see. And the room went completely silent except for the audio from the video. And I watched my mom's face change from confused to understanding to horror. And I watched my dad stand up so fast his chair fell over. And I watched Tyler go pale and start to say something, but no words came out. Emma was crying and saying, "Please stop, please don't do this." And Tyler was saying it's not what it looks like, which was the stupidest fucking thing he could have said because everyone could see exactly what it was. And my mom was crying and my dad was yelling and Lily started crying because everyone else was upset. And I just stood there holding my phone, feeling nothing, feeling empty, feeling like I was watching it happen to someone else. I told them I had 3 weeks of footage, told them I had dates and times and evidence of every time they'd done this while I was at work. And Emma was sobbing and trying to grab Lily and saying she was sorry. She was so sorry. It was a mistake. And Tyler was trying to explain, trying to say it just happened. They didn't mean for it to happen. And I remember thinking that's what people always say when they get caught. Like they just accidentally fell into bed together dozens of times. Why Dad told Tyler to get out and Tyler left without arguing. And my mom was holding Emma while she cried and asking me what I was going to do. And I said I was going to take my daughter and file for divorce, and Emma could explain to Lily someday why her family was broken. And then I picked up Lily and walked out of that house, and I've never been back. That was 8 months ago, and I'm living in an apartment across town with Lily 50% of the time because the court said I couldn't prove Emma was an unfit mother just because she'd had an affair. And I still have all those videos saved on my phone, even though my lawyer said I had enough evidence and didn't need to keep watching them. But sometimes late at night, when Lily's asleep, I open the app and scroll through the footage trying to find the moment where I missed it. The sign I should have seen, the warning I ignored. I haven't spoken to Tyler since that dinner, and my dad hasn't either. And my mom still calls Emma sometimes, which kills me, but I can't control what she does. And Emma has tried to explain 100 times. Tried to say it started innocent and then it wasn't, and she knows she destroyed everything, but she still loves me. And I just hang up because what the fuck am I supposed to say to that? The worst part isn't the divorce or the shared custody or even the betrayal. The worst part is that I still have that camera installed in Lily's nursery. And sometimes when it's Emma's week, I pull up the app and watch my daughter sleep in a house that isn't mine anymore. In a room where I caught my wife with my brother. And I see Emma walk in sometimes to check on her, and I see the way she looks at Lily with so much love. And I can't reconcile that person with the person who did this to us. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes, I see Tyler's truck parked outside when I'm watching the camera feed. And I don't know if they're still together, or if he's just visiting, or what the fuck is happening. But But I close the app before I can see more because there's only so much a person can take. And I've already seen more than enough. I still check that camera every day though. Still watch my daughter through a screen because it's the only way I can protect her when she's not with me, and I know it's probably unhealthy. I know I should probably delete the app and move on and let go, but I can't. Because that camera was supposed to keep my family safe and instead it showed me the truth. And now I can't stop looking for truths in everything. Can't stop checking and watching and waiting for the next thing to fall apart, but that's what surveillance does to you. It teaches you that nothing is what it seems. That the people you trust most are the people who can hurt you worst. And I installed a nanny cam to watch my baby, and instead I watched my entire life disintegrate pixel by pixel while I sat in a parking lot unable to look away.